All right. So this. Okay. Theoretically, this is this will this will work as an explanation. It will. Okay. So you see this guy. You see this guy. Okay. So essentially, the music, and then this guy suffering from a red integration problem, but with lax memory. This type of situation, see how they're all kind of zoning out and not having fun? And then this type of stuff is a potential that happens. And that usually the person that's tormenting them is who they will, or a visual image of. See, they do what's called flashy brains, which is where everybody looks the fucking same and shit. And so what ends up happening is that when they built the severed memory, a certain visual imagery of the person is usually reinforced by all these S&M clubbers that adhere to like typical looks or whatever, and that is where they all kind of adhere sometimes to a visual imagery that will sometimes be that like, well, not the normally it's not the black guy, but say that they had somebody sex doing the memory splitting. That person will usually be adhering to one of these typical S&M looks. Okay, so then usually those people that get this splitting memory, they usually get lured in on their own to a satanic S&M that will have a person that will probably fit a similar kind of description of the person that would have done the initial kind of abuse to the psyche. And so then if that person starts to see, a lot of these people that suffer from this memory loss basically have a subconscious protection altar that is essentially them, just with more memory. Basically. And that when the visual image of the person that basically would have built the initial like psychological damage, see if they're in an S&M and some guy that looks like that kind of guy is sitting there pissing them off, a lot of times it'll build up. The subconscious will see the visual imagery, and then they snap like that, kind of like that. It's kind of like that. A lot of times when they utilize the extra aspects to the speakers, basically the theoretical idea of the strobe lights and the weird cacophonous music stuff, see, that's when in ways they're building a subconscious irritability, like a sound that their subconscious perceives, and that's where their protection altar lives, and that it becomes a form of psychological torture that the personality with amnesia doesn't necessarily perceive. And so all of those ideas mixed together can cause those people to snap in a psycho-y way like that. And it has to do with their protection altar essentially sitting behind the scenes being ultimately tortured in a highly sophisticated kind of a way. I mean, it's to be the most accurate way to describe what that is. See, this weird imagery of 70s disco okay? And strobe lighting and stuff. That is kind of where people who did the similar splitting of the memories shit in the 1970s, They would also utilize strobe lights, like right when they would shock the psyche, they would have strobe lights and disco lights and weird, defiant jazz, cacophony music and stuff that was psychologically irritable, basically. And so there's a more modern idea that exists on dark web, and that there's people that they may not realize, but that there's whole groups nowadays that are counting down people that are seemingly normal throughout normal life. All of a sudden, they're counting down when the person snaps psychologically like that. So, that's the kind of stuff that gets noticed. And that essentially that is where those people are using a theoretical, like, psychological breakdown method that exists in like a restricted Geneva Convention, restricts that type of shit from being used, okay, in a military way. And that those are like forbidden military, like, intelligence methods. And there's like hacker groups and misogyny cop groups that are sitting there counting down people that they predict will snap psychologically, and they seem to realize that any logical and rational person will know how completely impossible that would be without some sort of scientific explanation. Here that is.